Growth is usually a good thing for a city, but in Segunda Beach, it's come with a side of gridlock. No matter where you're going or what time you leave, the city, and honestly the entire region, is completely choked with traffic. City planner Jack Norland has been hunting for a silver bullet to kill the congestion, but it doesn't exist. Instead, he's found a death by 1,000 cuts scenario. Poorly timed traffic lights, incorrectly applied roadway hierarchy, disastrous interchanges, a lack of suitable bike infrastructure, poor transit routes, and in some cases, not enough roadway capacity. But in the world of planning, it's bad out there doesn't get budgets approved. Data does. And because of that, Jack ran the numbers and found that the average commuter sits in congestion for an hour every single day. Annualized, that's 260 hours a year. To put that into perspective, that's more than a full calendar month of 8-hour workdays spent staring at someone else's bumper. And if you think about it, if the average wage in the county is $30 per hour, the average worker is effectively losing $7,500 per year in potential earnings. But let's be real, it's not just about the money. It's the stress tax. It's the time not spent with your family or on hobbies. It leads to cognitive fatigue, lower engagement at work, and increased absenteeism. All things that are hard to put in a spreadsheet, but that everyone feels in their bones. Now, through a bit of a game of telephone, that message hits the streets as Segunda Beach spends a month a year in traffic. Obviously, that's not totally accurate, but it works. And seemingly overnight, every single city council member has a transportation project that they want to champion. But a piecemeal approach like that just doesn't work. And Jack recommends taking a holistic approach and conducting a sweeping transportation audit. And today, we're going to be implementing the results. We'll make adjustments to roadway hierarchy, add roadway capacity, adjust signal timing, consolidate roadway access, and add some on-street bike infrastructure. And my hope is that I'll be able to show you how a real transportation planner would tackle a mess like this one so that you can apply these lessons to your own cities. Now don't worry, we're not forgetting about public transit or off-street active transportation networks. Those require a more thought-out and comprehensive plan, which Jack is currently working on. Don't forget to leave your ideas for him in the comments below. And I also didn't forget about this bridge. Many of you had thoughts about it in the comments for the previous video. I've come up with a compromise that I think that you're all going to be okay with. So be sure to stick around till the end when I fix it. And if you're excited to tackle traffic, hit the like button and drop your favorite traffic-related emoji in the comments below for the sake of engagement. But before we jump in, I'm officially in the thick of it right now. Between the YouTube production schedule, being a busy parent, all the travel I've been doing lately, and this ongoing office construction saga, my schedule doesn't just feel full, it feels like a puzzle where all the pieces are constantly moving. And when things get this chaotic, it's easy to stop taking care of yourself and just grab fast food or whatever junk's in the closet. That's why I've been so happy to have Factor salads lately. They've actually partnered with Sakura for these, and the quality is just incredible. And going off script for a moment, today I had the chicken taco bowl salad, and it was legitimately one of the best salads that I've ever had in my life. It was so good. I love that the standard Factor meals only take 2 minutes to prepare, but when you're away from the desk or on the road, these salads are an absolute game changer. Just pull them out of the lunchbox in your fridge, and you're good to go with a chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meal ready in just seconds. They're light, energizing, and they keep me moving throughout the day. And did I mention that they're both filling and delicious? At this point, I've had about half of their salad lineup, and I've loved every single one of them. And that's because they use high-quality ingredients, no refined seed oils, and no artificial junk. Just the good stuff. If all that sounds good to you, head to factor75.com or click on the link below and use code CityPlannerPlaysFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. A huge thank you to Factor for sponsoring another video. Now let's get back to it. Look at all that traffic backing up on the Verde Coast Highway. That is exactly why we are taking on today's build, where we try to tackle traffic problems throughout Segunda Beach. I've gone through the entire build and found 8 different areas where I think that we have major traffic problems and come up with solutions that I think will solve them. But here's the thing. Normally, I will test things out and come up with a plan, and this time around, we're going to be iterating and coming up with solutions on the fly. And the reason I want to do it that way is because I want to go through the mental process of trying to solve these problems right along with you. And I think ultimately this will be really helpful if you are struggling with these sorts of problems in your builds as well. And my hope is that by the end, all of those status indicators will be gone, traffic will look a whole lot better, and we won't see any more of these backups and delays. So let's tackle project number 1, Segunda Beach hierarchy fixes. This first fix is going to be quite large. We're going to basically be taking a look at the whole of Segunda Beach and the downtown in particular, and just making sure that we have properly applied roadway hierarchy throughout the entire build. This is one of the reasons why I think that we're seeing the amount of traffic that we have, because it's really bad. We basically have congestion on every single street, and all of the major arterials are completely backed up. So we'll be using the principles of roadway hierarchy to fix things. Now, if you're not sure what roadway hierarchy is, it's basically a way of categorizing roads based upon how they're supposed to function within your city. And understanding hierarchy can be really useful when you're planning your roadway network so that you understand the purpose of that road. Now, the reason I say we need to understand the purpose of a road is there's a fundamental tension in all roadway designs. Are you prioritizing access or speed? You can't do both. You get one or the other. And if you try to do both, you end up with an unsafe road or a congested road or both. And that's why at the very top of the roadway hierarchy, you have freeways and expressways. And the whole purpose of those roads is to move massive amounts of traffic over long distances as fast as possible. And to do that, they limit access. Underneath that, we have arterials, which are major surface streets in a city that link different parts of town to itself. These roads provide moderate amounts of access, generally have higher capacities and higher rates of speed. Underneath that, we have collectors. You can think of these as the main streets within a neighborhood that link one side of a neighborhood to the other. These have even more access than arterials, moderate capacity, and low to moderate speeds. And at the very bottom, we have the humble local road. These have the lowest speeds, the lowest capacity, and the maximum amount of access. That is precisely why it's okay that we have all of these driveway accesses on this local road. We are prioritizing access, not speeds. So obviously, when you're trying to figure out roadway hierarchy, you can look at the physical characteristics of a road to try to determine how it's supposed to function, but reasonably, that's not always going to be the silver bullet that you're looking for. And that's because you can actually have basically any road serve any purpose depending on how you're using it. So perhaps the better way of looking at things is to take a look at how it's actually functioning within your roadway network. And to do that, we're going to take a look at traffic volumes. And when we see all these purple roads, you can have a reasonable suspicion that these are functioning as either arterials or collectors. And if that is not how you want these roads to function, there are things that you can do to change things. And I think a great example of this is 7th Street right here. Now, this is an interesting road in that the classification is going to change depending on where you are within the road. So for instance, this right here is an arterial, but when it gets right here, I want it to turn into a local road. But when we look at the volumes, you can see that it's carrying arterial levels of traffic, which is not at all acceptable. So to solve this, I'm going to turn it into a one-way street. So if you've ever noticed in your community that there are sometimes strange roadway decisions, you wonder how it happened, this is one of the ways that it can happen. So basically from here back to this road, I'm going to turn this into a one-way going in this direction. This will cause all of the traffic coming from the mall to head onto this arterial. And I can actually formalize this by turning this into a one-way as well, although I think I'll give more capacity. And now we should be able to see this volume changing in real time. And it took a moment for the game to recalculate everything, but take a look at that. Now it is yellow. That is a local road now, or at least it's functioning like a local road. And that means that all of the traffic that road was carrying is now on the arterial, exactly where I wanted it to be. And if I wanted, I could calm things even further by narrowing up the road. So I'll add a bit of landscaping. And then if I wanted to take it to the next level, if cars were still using this, I could add even more friction. I could add stop signs. And I don't need to do this every block, but by adding those in targeted locations, I'm slowing down traffic, making this route less desirable, and in turn, making the arterials much more desirable to travel down. And speaking of that treatment, there's one more thing that we could do. In traffic, I'm going to set priorities right here on 7th. I'm going to stop coming from 7th and give priority right here. So I basically formalize this as the dominant movement in this area. So that same treatment that I just did with the local roads, I'm going to do that basically everywhere throughout Segunda Beach. But there's one more thing that I want to do as well. For all of our arterials, I want to make sure that we are controlling our signalization. So wherever we have a major arterial meeting up with a local road, the game will place a traffic signal, and I don't want that to be the treatment. So I will remove all of these and then go into the priorities tool and put stop signs in all the side streets. Now in areas like this where we have two arterials meeting up, totally fine having a signal. This makes perfect sense. And I want to make sure that we are applying that treatment in all of these locations. I'm also going to remove all parking on arterials. So where I know a road is supposed to function as an arterial, I don't want there to be circling and lots of parking madness happening. We'll leave parking if a road is supposed to function as a collector. That'll be a visual indicator to myself, and it's going to be completely okay because we are prioritizing more access on those roads. But a road like 8th right here, absolutely don't want people parking on it. And honestly, I like the aesthetic of that way better anyway. And then finally, I want to point out that there are going to be a couple of places where I make some context-sensitive decisions. So in an area like this, where we have 7th and Segunda Beach Boulevard, we've got a bus terminal right here. And I've been noticing that buses are getting gummed up right here and doing a weird looping movement. I think if we were to adjust this node right here and pull this back so that buses could get out right here, it's going to be better for transit and pedestrians. This takes this crossing and puts it right here, which is a much better location for the pedestrians that are trying to get to the bus depot. The buses will also be able to get around and make a left-hand turn right here. Now, in the real world, I think we'd have bus signal priority that would allow them to get out of here at all times. In the game, it's still going to work. It'll look a little bit wonky, and this will be a little nod to the way that would be in the real world. And by pulling this back a little bit, it'll work just fine. So with our principles in place, I'm going to apply it to all of Segunda Beach. Now, I'm going to pause momentarily because we have all sorts of issues right here. Basically, we're providing way too much access to this arterial. So sometimes this is unavoidable, and there are ways that we can probably make this a little bit better. I think that the roundabouts being this close are problematic. So I'll back both of them away. Then I want to spread these two intersections apart if I can. And it looks like from a terrain standpoint, we should have no problems with that. And this might not seem all that important, but we've just dramatically increased the queuing distance right here. That's the whole reason that we did that. Now I want to fix up the roadway naming, so I'm just going to add a node here temporarily and remove that. And now Walnut Street looks rational again. I also want to take a look at one thing. I'm noticing that Coolidge Street right here is backing up. And yeah, this is what I was worried about. We're creating extra issues by not having a direct connection from Kennedy onto Coolidge. This is basically acting as a frontage road. So I'm going to use an asymmetric right here and formalize this as a collector. So I use the asymmetric right here, which should give us the capacity that we need going into Walnut. And then I'm going to clean up all these crossings and get rid of the signal. And instead put a yield sign right here on Coolidge Street. So we are prioritizing Kennedy as the arterial couplet, but we're still saying that Coolidge can slide in here if there is space. Moving back over to the east side of town, we'll continue to set priorities. Now, before I move on from this area, I decided to take Pacific Avenue from Segunda Beach Boulevard all the way through here and turn it into an arterial. So this might seem strange, but if you think about what this would be doing, it'd be carrying traffic all the way to the university. So even though it's only 2 lanes, to me, this is a very important road and I want to direct all the traffic there. So to turn this into an arterial, all the roads that intersect have stop signs. When we have this 4-lane road intersecting it, we have traffic signals. And as a result, if you were to turn onto Pacific, you could just proceed all the way through without being impeded by any stop signs or traffic signals except for at these major arterials. And again, this is just the natural way of turning this into an arterial by using traffic signalization. Now over here, I gave priority to Kings Gate, Segunda Beach Boulevard, and Automotive Avenue. And where those roads intersected, I added traffic signals. Now in this area, there's a lot to adjust, and a lot of it has to do with Segunda Beach Boulevard. I'm not going to touch that, but I do want to prioritize our couplet over here, as well as Garland and Willowbrook. Now here in Lake Valley, things are interesting. We've basically got one arterial that goes through this entire area. So to resolve traffic here, I think I'm just going to slow things down and accept it. That's what you would expect to see in an area like this, where there would be lots of activity, lots of pedestrians. You just want to slow everything down, calm traffic down, and deal with a bit of congestion. And I ended up adding stop signs basically everywhere because I didn't want people to get creative with their routing now that I added stop signs up and down Main Street. And lastly, let's adjust the mall. Now, I've got to tell you, I want to adjust this area sometime soon because Civic Beaver has the very best suburban shopping mall assets that I've ever seen, and I want to bring them into this area, but that is a project for another day. For today, let's just clean up all these signals. And there actually wasn't a lot to do here. I improved this intersection because this is a truck stop after all, and I removed a bunch of crosswalks. Outside of that, most of the treatments through here seem appropriate. Now, looking at traffic volumes, things are looking a lot more like I want them to look, but I'm going to speed things along for a few minutes to see if we're still waiting for adjustments to take place. And I think things are more or less where they're going to be, and they look pretty good. And with that, all of our hierarchy fixes are in place, so let's move on to fixing the Segunda Beach Boulevard interchange. So the area that we're trying to fix is right here. There's a ton of backup, and I think that this is actually probably a more straightforward fix than I initially thought. So we've got some really ugly, very tight ramps right here, and I think that maybe we just need to remove those. Reasonably, if you need to get into the downtown area, you could get off right here or right here. But if you wanted to get back here, I think that having these ramps are actually quite valuable. So we just don't need to have every interchange being totally symmetrical. I'll get rid of these too. I'm also going to get rid of these roundabouts. And then let's fix our lane math. And now that we've got rid of this roundabout, we can also get rid of this traffic signal here. I'll get rid of one of these crosswalks and then set priorities, stop signs on both sides. Also going to add some sound walls right here. And then finally, I just want to make sure that our lane math is okay right here. It is absolutely not. We're dropping a lane for some reason. And now that we're relying on this interchange a bit more, I'll extend these 4 lanes a little bit further back. And then again, add the sound wall. And this kind of leads into the next fix. I think that we're going to be taking Segunda Beach Boulevard and urbanizing it all the way through here. But this is really important because I want to get the lanes right. We've got a whole bunch of arbitrary movements through here that shouldn't be taking place and unsafe movements that I want to remove, U-turns, crazy stuff like that. So I'm going to get rid of all of these. And if I don't convert the road right now, when I go to convert the road, I'll lose all those movements. So I figure this is the right time to do it. And we're still seeing pretty crazy traffic around the interchange, but at least things are not backing up into the highway. So with our interchange fixed, let's move on to fixing Segunda Beach Boulevard. As I look at Segunda Beach Boulevard, I think that there are really 2 major things that we have to do here. I think we need to add capacity and restrict access. So for capacity additions, I think that we're going to go with an urban large road, but we don't have those unlocked yet. So let's do that. This is 2 development points, and we currently have 128 available. So now that we have that, I'm going to place a 6-lane divided road right here. So we might need to redo what we just did right there, but not a big deal. And we're not going to need to do anything right here with the exception of this. We're missing 1 lane connection. After doing that, all of our lane math actually makes sense now. I will need to use move it extensively through here though, because things are just kind of wonky looking. And that little bit of cleanup makes a considerable difference. Now, before we go further down Segunda Beach Boulevard, I think that we've got to get rid of this connection right here. This is our first access consolidation. This is just not necessary, and it's gumming up traffic. The other nice thing about this is we have an elementary school right here, and we have this path, and if we play our cards right, we could send this path down here so the kids back here could walk to school. So I'm going to bump this road back just a little bit. And this is very steep, but not a big deal. We'll imagine that these are steps. And I was not supposed to be landscaping and detailing, but I don't regret it. I like this a lot. That is very, very nice. Now let's get back to Segunda Beach Boulevard where things are looking a little bit hairy. We'll straighten this up right here. I think I'm going to add a retaining wall all the way along here. I also want to add a median with some of these awesome illuminated palm trees. And now I'm going to go big and extend this all the way down to about right here. And I'm just going to hold this and then zoom in to this location. I'll add that median all the way down as well and add those same palm trees. And now all the small details. Now, I don't know what's happening right here. Things look absolutely crazy. I want to get rid of all of these signals. Then we'll clean up the lane connections. And then I'm going to get rid of most of these crosswalks. And then finally set some priorities here. You should be stopping before you get to Segunda Beach Boulevard. Right here, we'll have a yield. And then I still have the unreleased network tools in this build. So I think that this is a prime space to use it. Basically, this is a really steep slope, and I feel like we should improve that. Yeah, we've got a couple of areas with 12% grade. That's pretty extreme. I don't want to change the shape, so I'm going to say preserve. I could straighten this or smooth this. This is a new feature of this mod that is super cool. But in this instance, again, we'll preserve this. And all I want to do is have a constant slope. That takes this to 6.5 all the way along here. We'll apply this. That's much better. I'll do the exact same thing right here to here. And then I wonder, could I shape this? Could smooth this out, adjust the factor here. And it impacted the radii, but it didn't get rid of this jog. No big deal. Move it does the trick there. Now here at the end of Segunda Beach Boulevard, you can kind of see there's this weird highway segment. I think I'm going to urbanize through the roundabout just for visual continuity. And then I want to make some minor adjustments here. First is just cleaning this up with Move It. And then second, we have Goodall Way right here dumping into Segunda Beach Boulevard. That is not good. That's going to gum up traffic potentially because we have all of the vehicles coming out of here for road maintenance and the buses. So instead of doing that, I think I want to dump onto Willowbrook Street right here and get rid of this signal. Those are way too close to each other. And then I temporarily paused this because I noticed that we lost power, water, and sanitary sewer connections. And my guess is this is all the connections serving Lake Valley. So I'll take those all back to there and then link up in the center of the roundabout. Perfect. And then I've got to fix this connection. This got away from me. And after inadvertently deleting it, I've restored it and things are in good working order. Speaking of good working order, look at Segunda Beach Boulevard. There's basically no traffic. It makes me wonder if all that capacity was all for naught. This can happen sometimes though. As a result, now we've got this gigantic road with no cars in it. I am curious though, time of day matters. Yeah, we are entering the AM peak period and this is what traffic looks like. If this is what it looks like during the peak, we have way too much capacity, but I think I'm just gonna leave it. It'll be just fine. The one thing I'm not gonna leave though, this connection right here. This frontage road is gumming everything up. I think we'll make one small modification, which I think is going to have a gigantic impact on traffic in this area. You know, after watching this for a few minutes, I think that this is actually perfect. It's the right amount of capacity for this area, and it's absolutely crushing traffic now. The only thing I want to do is a little bit more cleanup. And after doing a bit of cleanup, that looks so much better. So with Segunda Beach Boulevard fixed, let's move on to the Verde Coast Highway at Sterling Highway intersection. Out of all the issues that we've faced so far today, I think that this is probably the biggest one. We are backing up in all directions with the exception of the Sterling Highway. You can see we're backing up to about here. And on this end, we're backing up past this interchange. But here's the thing. If we just throw a timed traffic light that might fix one of these legs, I think it'll break the other. And there's a chance it breaks this one. And that's because this highway, if we take a look at this, it's actually drawing traffic from this outside connection. This is the only way to get from that outside connection onto the highway. So there's a whole bunch of things going on right here. So I want to tackle things one movement at a time. And I think I'm going to start with this one. So basically, rather than having all this dummy traffic head this way, I want some to be able to exit the region right over here. So I'm going to take this road and attach it to this outside connection. Might seem a little bit strange, but reasonably, I think it's going to resolve a lot of traffic. We'll give that the appropriate name. And then I want to make sure that we're upgrading. And it looks like I've broken an outside water connection. And there we go. I think I also want to make these heights a little bit more similar. And then remove some of this landscaping. And this might seem minor, but my guess is, yeah, look at all the traffic this is carrying. It's actually quite a bit. And it's coming from this outside connection. That's just dummy traffic, and we are handling it. Only one more adjustment that I want to make. I went ahead and prioritized the Pacific Highway and downgraded this little segment of road right here, so it's much more logical and makes a ton more sense. So that's one movement down. Now we have to come back to the intersection. That's really the subject of this fix. And there's one thing I want to start out with, and that is this through movement through here. There's no reason why there should be a stoplight right here. At least not if we configure things appropriately, and that's what I want to start out with. Let's add lanes right here. And then I'm going to sever this connection. And now here's the magic. We're going to downgrade this to 2. Upgrade this bridge segment to 4. This is not at all realistic. Upgrading a bridge is really, really challenging, but I feel like we need that there. Then we'll attach here, draw this up here, and then connect right here. Then for this one, I'm going to connect one more time, but I'm going to turn off all of my snap twos so I can be very deliberate with this. And I don't think that this worked actually. I think that we've got to do one more thing. Let's back this out, downgrade this, and then attach these. Now we'll just try to clean things up. And that right there is a good change. Now let's adjust our lane connections. No U-turns, double right, no throughs. Then I'm going to drag some of these nodes out. And I'm doing that to make the turn more sweeping for the semis. Broke a couple more lane connectors. We'll fix those. And then right here, this merge is kind of abrupt. So I'll extend this out. And we'll imagine that these bridges were reconstructed at the same time. Honestly, I kind of wonder, yeah, we probably should go a little bit further back. It's necking down for no reason. So essentially what this has done is allowed vehicles to go straight through here without stopping. That part's great. We'll do a little bit of cleanup and this leg is handled. We've got to figure out how to clear this queue. And for that, I think we're going to need a time traffic signal. But before I do that, I want to clean this up because it's pretty ugly. And that's looking better, so now let's add this time traffic signal. For that, I've added traffic lights enhancement into the build. We'll select this signal, and I want to have custom phases. We'll go into the custom phase editor, and then we'll add phase 1. For phase 1, this is going to be our left-hand turn coming from Segunda Beach. That's the only movement that we'll allow. We'll change the phase when this is empty, minimum duration of 10 seconds, max of 60. And that's probably way longer than it needs to be. For our second phase, we're going to do the exact opposite. This will be that through movement. We'll change the phase when empty, minimum duration, 30 seconds. So we'll say 20 seconds. Max, I'm going to say 130. And then we'll save that one. And then our final phase is going to be the left-hand turn from the Sterling Highway. We'll keep this phase change mode to auto. And honestly, I'll probably just keep everything to auto for this one. So now I just want to see how things are working. So we're just going to take a look and let things run for a couple minutes. Okay, here's where I may upset some people. Everything cleared. Everything's working just fine, but I think it could be better. So because of that, I'm going to keep messing with this. I was noticing that there's a weird bit of movement right here. Basically, it seems like there's a node conflict, and I'm wondering if because of where these nodes end, there's weird lane switching occurring. The other thing I can't help but think is there's potentially a need for just a bit more capacity. Not a lot more, but during the peak period, it seems like there's a bit of confusion. So I'm going to extend that back just a little ways, and hopefully that cleans things up. And then right here, there's a whole bunch of confusion. Basically, there's no dedicated lane for this right hand or this free right. So as a result, there's some stopping that's occurring right here. So if I were to add one more lane, we wouldn't have that backup. Problem is, I don't really have a road that will do that. I think reversing this might be the only way. I think it might be worth it though. So essentially, they're merging into here now. So we'll need to give priority. We'll just say that this is a yield, but that is considerably better. Considerably better. Speaking of priorities, this is a yield and that's problematic. It's leading to a whole bunch of vehicles taking this side street. I want to add a bunch of stop signs through here so we stop getting the traffic cutting through a semi going on dirt roads. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And adding a whole bunch of stop signs might seem extreme, and you'd think that in the real world, the dirt road would be enough dissuasion to get a whole bunch of semis traveling down it, but in the game, if it's what it takes to make things flow appropriately, I think it's completely fine to do. And speaking of flowing appropriately, we are in the PM peak period right now, so I just want to observe this for a couple more minutes just to make sure that we're still clearing all of our traffic, and if we do, then we'll move on to our next project. And honestly, that is working absolutely beautifully. So with our intersection fixed, let's move on to the Walnut Street interchange. I think that the Walnut Street interchange is actually going to be the most challenging project that we work on today. And even though it looks manageable, there are a number of things about this area that make it really challenging. I think the big thing is that we've got intersections that are just way too close together for the amount of capacity that Walnut Street carries. And I thought that maybe I could figure out how to make Kennedy Street work right here, but the more I think about this, the more I think it's a really bad idea. Rather than doing that, I think I want to sever Kennedy Street and get rid of Mistywood right here and send this road down where Coolidge meets up, have a nice arterial connection right here into Walnut, and have a really nice spacing in between this intersection and this one. Over here, I don't know that we can actually get rid of this street. So instead we'll get rid of this roundabout and then have a timed traffic light in between this one, and we'll coordinate them. And then throughout all of Walnut Street, I think that we're gonna have to remove crossings and probably add capacity to the road. And that's actually where I wanna begin. I wanna do all the preparations of the road. So we'll get rid of the roundabout. We'll clean up this street right here. We'll end up taking Kennedy and sending it down this way. Then we'll go with a 4-lane divided road right here. It looks like we have a bus stop right here. I don't want to do that. Yeah, indeed we have one right there. So I'm going to relocate this to right there. And then we'll get rid of the parking on these streets. And I basically just formalized that as the arterial couplet. So now let's prepare Walnut Street. And the first thing that I want to do is straighten this out. And then I'm not sure how many lanes we're going to need right here. That's really going to be directed or dictated by what we do on the ramp over here. And I think I want to have free rights and dual lefts. Now to do that, we're going to need more lanes. So I'll take this up to 4 lanes. And then right here, I'll get that free right. And I'm probably going to want the exact same treatment on the other side, a free right onto this ramp. So I'll add that right away. We'll also get the dual right, which means that we'll need 3 lanes right here. And now that I see this, I can see that we actually need 6 lanes right here. So we get this upgraded to be a 6-lane road. And then the height of realism, we'll just pull these back. Don't worry about that, nothing to see here. Now, this is almost where we want it to be, but there are a couple of small improvements. I'll remove U-turns and unsafe. No right here, no right here. Gonna remove the median here. We'll clean up that unnecessary movement, get rid of the traffic signal, try to make sure this is nice and smooth. Now I may do a few more things right here, but first we've got to add more lanes on Walnut Street once again. And I'm gonna start out with the 6 lanes. And yes, I said start out with. There's a chance that we add even more, but let's not do anything too crazy just yet. I'm gonna temporarily remove the highway so I can see what I'm doing. And realize that I was about to add a crazy movement. That doesn't make any sense. But let's do this. We'll do our straight movement right there. We'll over-engineer this. And we'll sweep that movement through. And now there are all the movements. So now let's just clean some things up. I'm not quite sure when I started designing this monstrosity, but I decided to stick with it, and it is an absolute mess, and it's also kind of awesome. Basically, what you're seeing here is we have a dual left that won't interfere with this through movement at all. So when we do our timed traffic lights, we could run those movements at the exact same time if we wanted to. We also have a dual left onto the highway and a straight movement right here. So those could run at the exact same time as well. Now, this is a wide road. It is huge. And again, the height of realism, we're going to move these right back. Now, I'm going to reestablish the highway finally, get rid of the parking here, and then move on to the next intersection where I want to do something very similar. I don't have space here to have separate legs, so I'll just upgrade this to have more lanes and then add sound walls. Now on the other side, we can add additional lanes, and we will. And then I'll start out with 6 lanes right here. Okay, that is the start right there. Now let's figure out all of our lane connectors. On this small segment, I only need 5 lanes. So I shrunk and cleaned that up. And now right here, if I get rid of the crazy movements, I'm pretty sure that we have proper lane math. And we actually didn't have proper lane math, so I decided to go ahead and use one of the asymmetrics so that we could have proper lane math, and that looks much better. Now it looks like we have some bus stuff going on here that's not great. So I think I'm gonna back these stops up, or at least that one. We'll add grass here, and then because I don't wanna have the bump out, I'll add concrete here, then add a node, and then switch to grass. And if you weren't aware of this, grass will create the bump outs, but a wide sidewalk, that will keep the bus in its lane. And ultimately, from an operational standpoint, it's much better for transit not to leave its lane. You know, I think I'm going to extend with the 6-lane road down a bit further, maybe all the way down to here. And then I'll clean this up quickly. And I'll pull this bus stop back as well. And now that's looking much better. Now we're about ready to start placing our timed traffic lights, but there's one more thing that I want to do. I want to remove a bunch of these crosswalks across Walnut Avenue. And instead of having those, I'm going to have a couple of pedestrian overpasses. The first one will be right here. You can see we already have this hill from where the road used to be. And that's nice. That would be a really great community amenity. And now to make it useful from Walnut, perfect. And I'll add the exact same kind of loop on the other side. And that is a thing of beauty and now a really valuable community amenity. Now over here, I want to do something similar, though this time I'm going to make it considerably more urban. And that was ridiculously over-engineered, but I decided to do it anyway, and I'm proud of it. So now we have our pedestrian connections figured out. The only thing that we have left to do is our timed traffic signals. You know, initially I was thinking that I was going to chain together a whole bunch of lights and have a green wave, but I don't think that it's totally necessary. I think what I want to do is actually just chain together maybe these two right here, and then have a timed traffic light right here and maybe right here, and then kind of call it a day. I think that's all that we need. Traffic's not all that bad considering, you know, how much is going on right here. So let's begin with our more complicated one. And I just want to add a timed traffic light right here, one right here as well. And then we'll create a traffic group. This will be Walnut. And then I have to add my members. The first is going to be the leader. Anything after that will be subservient to that one. And then I want to adjust this, but I just need to make sure that everything is just right here. And I can already see I've got a couple of issues. I don't want that pedestrian crossing. I want one right here. And I want to take one last look at all the lane connectors. Yep, we got issues right here. We'll remove unsafe and U-turns. And now back looking at our traffic group, I'm going to modify this first one right here. We'll add a phase. The first phase will be just to clear out the ramp. We could also add a free right here and the through movement. All of those are compatible. Oh, no, actually the through movement is not. Next, we'll go through and take a left here. And then for our final movement, I'm going to once again allow those. And there are a few duplicative movements, but I think it's going to be for the best considering we have a lot of capacity need right here. And I can tell that all the movements are covered because I don't have any orange lines remaining. Oh, actually I do. We don't have that pedestrian phase right here. That's an orange. I'm going to add it here as part of phase 3. And then I'll make this right-hand turn a yield by turning it blue. So you yield to the pedestrians. Now we have all of our movements covered. Don't love this though. The pedestrians just jaywalked right there. There's not much that I can do about that. They're also jaywalking right here. That is not awesome. They should do that over here. Either way, now that we have this done, I'm going to back out, go back into the traffic groups, and then copy phases to all members. And this basically takes what we had right here and applies it over here. And I don't much care about that because it's not going to be right. But why I'm doing that is because now if I go back into the custom phase editor and I look at each of these phases, I can control both of these. So now I'm going to pause it because I want to look at each of these phases. This is the phase where we're going through and making our left. We'll do the exact same thing over here. Through movements, yield on the left, and we'll go on the right. For phase 2, it's not doing anything. This will actually be our through movements. We'll also give rights and yielding lefts. And then for our final movement, we had the pedestrian crossings. And bluntly, this is basically the same phase. I'll just add the yielding lefts back. And then for phase 2, allow peds. And now they're essentially the same. No need to have any differences there. So now I just want to let it run and see what happens. And this is pretty good, but all the jaywalkers are creating all sorts of issues. So I'm going to make a slight modification here. I'm going to remove this and this and this and this. If you're a pedestrian, you're on this side of the road. And that removed those pedestrian phases there, so hopefully we stop seeing all the jaywalking. It almost feels as if they're crossing for the fun of it. And that makes me think I probably broke some nodes here. And it seems like that took care of most of the jaywalking, but now we are dealing with crazy amounts of backup. And the way that I want to deal with this is tweaking the timed traffic lights. So this phase right here, phase 1, needs to go longer. So we're going to change the phase mode to switch when empty. The phase will last for at least 10 seconds and go up to 50. And we can see that that ran for quite a while longer than it did before. We probably want to do something similar with phase 3, considering that's the through movement. So we'll change phase when empty, minimum duration 10, max 50. And this side is looking pretty good with one exception. Just want a slightly nicer transition. And now we're ready for our next time traffic light, and that's going to be right here. This one won't be a group though, just a single time traffic light. And you know, I could probably get away with going with like split phasing with a protected left, but I think I want to do a totally custom phase. And we'll do something very similar to what we did over here. We'll have our throughs and allow peds. Phase 2, basically just the left and the through movement. Phase 3 is just going onto the highway and peds. We've also got one movement here that we're not supposed to have. Get rid of that. And then I want to take this first phase, set it to when empty again, minimum duration. I'll say 5 seconds because if we're blocked up over here, I don't want it to just stay green. Maximum of 50. Same thing with this. Change when empty, minimum 5, maximum 50. And same thing with our final phase. And it's interesting, it's actually completely clogged up. So I'm going to say on flow drop. And this appears to be doing a pretty good job right here of crossing traffic. So I'm going to move on to the next part of Walnut Street because that is our next challenge. This is still related to the interchange in my opinion. We'll do a custom phase here as well. First phase is pretty basic, just allows you to go straight through. Change when empty, minimum phase 5 again. Maximum, we'll say 75. And I'm doing that because there's not a lot of traffic coming from the other ways. Then for our second phase, it's all the movements. Phase 1 will also allow the PEDs and yield to them. And then I want to use traffic to get rid of U-turns and unsafe movements. I also swapped out the crosswalk here because the one that was here is actually related to this PED path, not the road, and I couldn't toggle it. Now, I'm not sure why things are clogged up right here, but I think it might be the nodes, so I'll just clean these up. And it seems like that might have been the problem. This makes me think all these retaining walls, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but I don't know that it actually is a great idea, so I'll just get rid of those. And after all of that over-engineering, we have completely cleared traffic in this area. It's a thing of beauty. So with the interchange complete, let's move on to Pacific Avenue traffic calming. Okay, now we go from something really complicated to something really simple. I want to add bike lanes to Pacific Avenue, basically linking up this side of town all the way to the university. There will be a couple of tricky areas where we have parking that I don't want to remove, or in an area like this where we have an alley on one side and we won't be able to have bike lanes on both sides. But for the most part, this is going to be fairly straightforward. Just grab the double-sided bike lane and run it up and down. Because this is the end, I'm going to add some bike parking. And I'm also going to add some to the key over here. Now I'll send this around our little traffic circle right here. And you know, there's no great way to get to this key without that path, so I'm going to add that as well. Now we'll just follow along the coast right here until we get to this area. We can't add bike lanes here because of all the parking, and this parking is really important for this area. So I'm going to send the bike path down here along the coast. And the reason I'm going here is we've got our bus terminal, we've got the harbor, just a really nice transportation area. So let's take advantage of that location. Then I'll run this along Pacific Avenue once again. We're going to run into the exact same problem right here where we have parking that I don't want to remove. So what I'm going to do is send this up here, and then I'm going to convert this path right here to be a multi-use path. And we'll get rid of that one. Now we can run this along Parisian. Clean up this junction right here. And then I think I'll stick up here for a little while. We'll come back down right here near the park. Then from here, we just need to find a nice path into the university. And you know, knowing that we've given this the arterial treatment, I don't think that this is the path. In fact, I think that this was a mistake to come down. We'll stick right here, go down right there, and then I'm going to remove this. We'll still leave the path down to the park, but I like that we are not mixing with this arterial traffic if we come down here. And then we can make one nice connection into the university right here. And then just like we did at the other side, let's add a bit of bike parking. Nothing crazy, but that will help. So that wasn't anything all that crazy, but it will calm traffic on Pacific Avenue a bit, and it introduces our first bike network to the city, which is great to see. So with that complete, let's move on to our Walnut Street fixes. That's right, I didn't misspeak, we are back on Walnut Street, but this time we're over here. And that's because we are completely backed up here. I think that there are a couple of small tweaks that we could make here that could solve all of our problems. The big one is we need turning pockets in a couple of key locations. Right here is a great example of that. And I'm going to go big. We're going to use a 6-lane asymmetric. There we go. And this just gives us all those nice turn pockets. Let's remove unsafe and U-turns. Instead of the triple left, we'll go with the double right. And then I just want to make things look nicer by backing this out. Much better. Now, right here, there must be a bus stop because we have this gigantic bus bay. And indeed, little tiny bus stop right there. So let's add a temporary node, concrete, and then trees. We'll do the exact same thing right here, although it's not nearly as important because we don't have as much capacity on this road. I'm just gonna move this back so that the bus isn't hanging in the intersection. And I'll do the exact same thing here. Then I'm gonna clean this up. And I don't love the way that this looks, so I might get rid of this median altogether. And that is so much better. Now I'll give turning pockets right here. And then I want to go 6 lanes right here. We'll have to shift this down to make it look a little bit nicer. And then right here, I don't want to drop a lane. We'll upgrade this to be a 3-lane one-way road, and then try to get these to line up nicely. Now I want to get rid of some of these movements right here. No U-turns or unsafe movements. And I'll extend these lanes all the way through the neighborhood. But that's not good enough. I think that we have to have some signal timing here as well. And I think I'll do split phasing, allow turn on red, and a pedestrian phase. We'll also get rid of U-turns and unsafe movements and silly movements. And perhaps this is the one spot where we need to do a custom traffic light. And the main reason I say that is we need to allow more throughput through here. That's phase 1. This is phase 2. And for phase 1, we'll keep going until it's empty. Minimum 15 seconds, maximum 90. And that was just what the doctor ordered right there. Let's also remove unnecessary junctions. And it seems like those small changes have made a huge difference. No traffic anymore. Now right here, I also don't want to have parking, so we'll add some trees. And before we leave this area, there's one more place I want to add a turning pocket. Right here on Segunda Beach Boulevard, I've been noticing a bit of backup. So we'll go with a 7-lane road right here. And that will give us a dedicated turn lane. Perfect. And after all of that, Walnut Street is finally fixed. So let's move on to setting districts and policies. So this project is going to be very simple, but a little bit tedious. We need to create districts throughout the entire region and then assign city services to basically all of them. Now, this is something I probably should have done while I was building, but I didn't, and now I'm very regretful. So we're going to make up for lost time, add them everywhere, and try to mirror the way that we develop the city so it feels like these are real neighborhoods. So with our plan in place, let's get districting. Now I've painstakingly gone through the entire build and made districts over everything, and I was really careful not to use anarchy because I didn't want any shenanigans to happen. So now these should be completely perfect. So now I'm going to go through each and every city service and assign them to the districts. And after about 30 minutes, I have everything divided up, and it seems like things are already starting to run a little bit better. But one thing I noticed is that we are way low on elementary capacity. So just as a stopgap solution, I'm going to add the elementary school upgrade to the Emerald Towers, and this will give us 2,500 student capacity. And I've already given this a district. It's basically the university over to the tower. And then I was just personally a little bit curious, so I let this run for a while, and the school didn't completely fill up, but look at how many students are in it. This was absolutely necessary. Now at this point, most of our status indicators are gone, but there are still a few left, and I want to see if they disappear while we do a little bit of landscaping and detailing. So reasonably, we touched every single facet of the build. So I want to go through everything to make sure I didn't leave any trees popping out anywhere, make sure that none of the roads are janky. And I want to take a look at the interchange areas to make sure that things are as smooth as they can be and that the landscaping makes sense. I also want to look at the roads to see if we need to add street trees or wide sidewalks and make sure that we don't have any arbitrary crosswalks. And again, because we touched the whole build, I'm going to look at the entire build. So with our plan in place, let's get detailing. And after about 35 minutes of landscaping and detailing, the city is now looking pretty darn good. But there's this new interesting problem that's cropping up. We've got a whole bunch of beverage companies and chemical companies that are currently not seeing enough customers. I don't know that there's anything that I'm going to do about that right now, but it's something I want to keep an eye on. Now, normally this would be the time when we jump into a city tour, but I want to make some fixes based on your feedback before then. All right, folks, I read all of your feedback, and I know that many of you do not like this bridge, and I kind of thought that that might happen. But here's the thing. After giving it a lot of thought, we are going to stick with the bridge because the bridge is kind of my vision for the area. This is going to be the centerpiece of the city. It's going to be an important piece of infrastructure that the city is really known for. And after double checking bridge heights, I wanted to see if this was totally unreasonable. It's actually not. In fact, we could go even higher and it would still be reasonable. For instance, the Conrado Bridge in San Diego is actually about 60 meters tall. And the bridges in Florida and Texas that this is modeled after are about the same height. But you guys did convince me of one thing. I think that the truss arch bridge is not the call here, not the move. I think visually it's way too obstructive, and a number of you rightly called out that there is no way to make this join look better, and because of that, we are going to go with a different bridge type. So let's say goodbye to this bridge. So the reason I think I settled for the 4-lane truss arch bridge is because I was only looking at medium roads. But if I would have switched over to the large roads, we've got a few other options. Now, the suspension bridges are in general way too big. I don't want to go with a drawbridge, but this bridge right here, the 6-lane divided extra dose bridge, this one could work. Now, obviously, if we add this, we're going to have to switch our road segments and add even more capacity here. I don't necessarily care for the capacity, but I want it to look nice, so we add it. And you know, that is already quite an improvement, but I think that we can do even better. And that's because Astronash pointed out that it's not unusual to see these bridges go all the way to the ground with their pillars. So I think that we're going to make this a bridge segment all the way through the loop. One thing that I really like about this is that it opens this entire area up for development because those big hillsides are going to be really difficult to develop near. And then finally, the last thing that I want to do is adjust the slopes here. And I think I am going to slope from the center of the bridge. And I'll begin by going to here. And I looked up to see what the maximum slope for a bridge like this would be. And 4% is pretty typical. 4.7 is max. And that would mean that trucks have to slow down a little bit as they elevate on the bridge. So I'm going to ease in and out of this and try to make sure that we are no more than 4.7% grade. That got us to about right here. So now let's slope from here to here. This one can be constant. And that's exactly 4.7%. That's awesome. Going to experiment a bit more, perhaps. I'm going to try a couple of things. I just want to see if we have clearance here. Way more than we need. I will take this way down. Let's slope here. We'll do a straight slope and then see what our grades look like if we go here. Way too steep, but now I can back it out. Okay, I think that is much nicer. The only place that's kind of weird is right here. We'll straight slope. Yeah, that's pretty nice right there. So now we'll do the exact same thing on the other end. I'll start in the center and adjust back to here. I want to use ease in and out of slope again. And this is actually 4.7 max right here. We get lower, much lower over here. So let's see how this looks by our buildings. Completely reasonable. Completely reasonable. Maybe a little bit too low right here. So I'll just re-slope this area. And apply a straight slope. Now that looks really, really good. And the last thing I want to do is see if I can make this look a little bit more arched. Or at least maybe not so pointy right there. I think that this is going to be just fine. I think that is quite the improvement. And it means that if we look at the rock from over here, we get a mostly unimpeded view. And honestly, I don't think it matters the vantage point. It just looks a ton better. So to everyone who left feedback about the bridge, thank you so much. This was a huge improvement in my opinion. So with all of that complete, there's only one more thing left to do. Let's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. And you know, I feel like we're at a really interesting spot with Segunda Beach. We are not 100% free of traffic, but traffic is predictable. It only backs up during the peak periods, and it's not that bad. It eventually clears. And honestly, that's okay. Seeing something like this isn't a problem. Your city should have activity. It should feel like it's alive, and there should be some traffic. Ultimately, our main goal is to make sure that things are always moving, that nothing's getting completely gummed up, and that even if your citizens have a bit of delay, they can still get where they need to go. And I don't know about you, but I just love looking at these super busy areas. Just looking at this and watching things clear out, it's just so much fun to look at an area like this that has so much activity and watch it clear out. And even though this is a mess of pavement and obviously very auto-oriented, it's just a ton of fun to build and untangle areas like this. So thank you for indulging me in this one. But ultimately, I'm really interested in knowing how we impacted traffic flow and traffic volumes. So here's what the traffic flow looked like before, and here's what it looks like now. You can see that it's still heavy in a lot of the same areas, but in a couple of the areas, in particular Segunda Beach Boulevard and Walnut Street, things are looking a ton better. Things also look a ton better on the Verde Coast Highway generally. So I'm quite pleased to see that. And in terms of volumes, here's how things looked before, and here's how they look now. And this is the one that I think has the most dramatic improvement. Basically, we're adhering to roadway hierarchy. All those pinks and purples are highways and arterials. So it means that our roadway network is functioning as I designed it to. And before we move on, I feel like I have to point this out. Even though we've got a sea of red here in downtown Segunda Beach, when we look at what the cars are doing, they're actually flowing. And ultimately, that's all that really matters when you're fixing traffic. This does make me wonder though, what is up with this info view? Mine has been pegged to 60% forever, and even though traffic flow looks great throughout this entire area, it still says that it's bad. It's very curious. And after all of this traffic fixing, I feel like we're leaving Segunda Beach in a really good place and prime for future development, which is exactly where I wanted to be. But I think after all of that traffic fixing, we're going to leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and fix a bunch of traffic problems. And for that, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.